Hello, everybody. I'm Cade, and today we're going to be talking about my paper, which is The Foundations of the Modern World, the Medieval Age. Now, the main thesis of my paper is the medieval era set down a lot of the groundwork for the modern world, both good and bad. So let's get into it. Starting off, we have globalization. So globalization really took off during the medieval period. We can see this with the Norse, especially with their various trade routes, such as to the Mediterranean, interacting with Arabic traders, as well as eventually settling down in Russia, eventually becoming the modern Russian state. Furthermore, we also have the Norse traveling across the Atlantic Ocean and eventually visiting North America, however not settling there permanently. But they still conducted trade. Furthermore, the Mongols were also influential in the spread of globalization, mainly with the Silk Road. Whilst they didn't found the Silk Road, they were important when it comes to protecting it. And this allowed for the flow of goods and ideas as well as religions. We also see China playing a great role in the spread of globalization in the medieval period. You can see this with them trading various goods for incense as well as African ivory and gold. We also have various records of different people's travels during this time. One of the best sources I've read about the medieval era comes from Ibn Battuta, who traveled the world, especially into sub-Saharan Africa, and explored their cultures as well as trading various different goods. Moving on. We also see a significant amount of academic progress when it comes to the medieval era. Now, a lot of this can be seen with the Baghdad House of Wisdom. Now, the Baghdad House of Wisdom was an academic and intellectual center in Baghdad that housed some of the Islamic world's greatest minds. This was important because the Baghdad House of Wisdom came up with a lot of medical treatments that we still use today. They discovered using catgut sutures in order to treat wounds. They also instituted various hospital protocols that are still in use today, such as separate wards for different ailments and hygiene procedures, as well as having an on-site pharmacy. Furthermore, there were also other anatomical breakthroughs during this time at the Baghdad House of Wisdom. For example, they discovered pulmonary circulation, which is basically how blood gets to your lungs, and the first diagram of an eye. They also preserved a lot of works associated with Western culture, such as the Iliad and the Odyssey, which might have been lost if they had not preserved it. We also see a lot of church reform during this time, especially in regards to regulating behavior of priests and giving the church a more sound footing. We also see a lot of universities being founded during this time, such as Oxford and Cambridge, and these institutions are still around today and have contributed greatly to academic progress. Sorry, I got a little bug in my throat there. However, we do see a lot of negative aspects of the modern world coming out during this time, especially in regards to religious conflict. One of the most famous conflicts are the Crusades, in which the Pope called for a crusade to liberate the Holy Land And this still has lasting effects today with Christian and Islamic tensions. Furthermore, during the Crusades, there was a rise in anti-Semitic violence against the Jewish populations in Europe. And we also see the formations of a lot of harmful stereotypes during this time. One of the most prominent ones being the stereotype that Jewish people are greedy. Now, during this time, it was illegal for Christians to engage in, as they would call it, the sin of usury, which is lending money for profit. For example, a bank loan charging 10% interest. And then also at the same time, Jews in many parts of Europe were barred from owning property. To supplement their income and make money, they would lend out money for interest, leading to the stereotype that Jewish people are greedy. Moving on. We also see a lot of cultural and linguistic impact during this time as well. We see this a lot with the French influence on the English language. Around the year 1066, William the Conqueror conquered England, and being from Normandy, a part of France at the time, and still is, so he set up a subclass of ruling class of French nobles that would oversee the country. And because of this, a lot of French words snuck into the English language. This can be seen in the words such as beef. We back there a little bit. And also the words duke and chivalry. There was also a relation between what words were considered proper and improper. For example, the French word to relieve yourself, defecate, is a perfectly normal word. However, the English word that the commoners would say, which is the S word, became a bad word. And we can see this in various other aspects as well of the English language. The Anglo-Saxons also affected Western culture during this time in a number of ways. For example, the Anglo-Saxons' emphasis on local rule and local autonomy plays a crucial role in the various administrative systems that we can see around the world today, such as here in America, where we have the city government, county government, and the state government. With that being said, I would just like to thank you all for listening to my presentation. This is the second presentation I have made, and I apologize again to everybody who wanted to view this presentation who couldn't because of my previous technical errors. And to end this, I'm just going to go over a quick literature review of my bibliography. One of the most helpful sources when conducting this research was Rowan Dorian's No Return: Jews, Christian Usurers, and the Spread of Mass Expulsion in Medieval Europe. This was a great source when it comes to researching religious conflict and the formation of harmful stereotypes. And also, Eleanor Jenga's The Middle Ages, A Graphic History was also quite interesting to read, as well as very informative, and helped me in my research. That being said, thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys have a wonderful summer, and I hope you enjoyed this class.